Hello, 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 everyone. In I guess that's internet land. It's your boy Pork Chop, 1/3 of the Quicksilver Morning Show. And today, minorities and mental health, grief and loneliness during the holidays, all being sponsored by Sheppard Pratt. We have three esteemed guests on here. And let me introduce them to you. We have Miss Annette MARCH-GRIER, the president and co-founder of Roberta's House. We also have Ronald Means, MD. I was about to say Maryland, but it's hot. That's Sheppard Pratt, Chief of Medical Staff, and the biggest of them all, my girl Sharon Banks, a survivor and an advocate of loneliness and grief. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So let's start with you, Ms. Greer. What is Roberta House for those that might not know?
Well, first, how are you, Pork Chop? Good to see you.
Eh,
I know, I
you
know.
gonna get into me in a second.
Well, that's why we're here today. That's why we're here talking about this. So, Roberta's House is a family bereavement center that provides trauma-informed care for individuals who've experienced the death of someone close. So, we provide bereavement support groups, clinical therapy, all kinds of programs helping individuals to work through their grief experiences and grow ultimately from them.
Okay, so I guess Dr. Means, you can answer the next question, which is how does grief impact or change a person's outlook on life during the holiday season? I guess we all can answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can get started, and I'd love to hear from the rest of the folks. But thanks, Pork Chop, for having me tonight as well. So I think grief impacts the holiday seasons quite a bit, right? So much of the holiday is around tradition. It's around having family and friends that you're closest with, to support and to celebrate. So when you lose someone that you love, it impacts the entirety of that celebratory experience, and that's where we have to come together as a community in order to figure out how we're going to change our outlook about those celebrations, those holidays, without having those loved ones present. So it takes a little bit of forethought and a little planning, but often, despite grieving during the holiday season, you can come up with ways to prevent losing the importance and the joy that's experienced during the holidays. If again you create a situation in order to not sit in that grief, and also to have people surround you that support you and allow you to enjoy and celebrate with their support.
How about you, Miss Annette? Well, how you feel about that?
Well, this time of year and many other holidays too triggers people's feelings and experiences and emotions around their loss. And it does trigger some depression. And, it starts early. Some people who've experienced the death of someone recently may start feeling some anxiety and depression as early as September. One is because, there's a lot of fantasy put around the holiday season with families. It's about family time, it's about traditions. And believe it or not, this time of year is probably the highest time that people are suffering with loneliness and depression
Yeah.
because, it's an unrealistic, ideal world that we want to have, and yet so many people are experiencing loss and grief. So it's just the opposite of, they often say this is supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year. Well,
Yeah.
it is for some, but for others, a lot of people are trying to adjust and adapt to a great loss, and it's a sad time.
Yeah. Do you have a story to add on, Miss Sharon?
Well, hi, Chop, first of all. Thanks for having me this evening.
Good luck.
I lost my son back in April of 2023.
I'm sorry.
So this, I appreciate it. This will actually be only my second Christmas and Thanksgiving without him. So I mean, it's rough. The first year was really rough, and as I said before, I was a survivor. I mean, I am a survivor, but I was a participant at Roberta's House who really helped me through. They gave me a lot of tools to use, but it's still, I don't think anybody or anything can really prepare you so much for this time of year. And like I said, this is only year 2 for me. I don't know where I may be in year 5 or year 10. I don't know. I may still be in the same place. I think I've come a long way with the tools that were given. And like Dr. Means said, as well as Miss Annette, um, people deal with grief a little differently. So it's not for me to say how to deal with it, but I can try to give you some tips and tools on how I'm dealing with it and how I try to get through it. And like I said, this is only year 2 for me. But just like you, Poor Chop, Christmas has never been my thing anyway. I've never been big on Christmas. And for me, just because of my background growing up, Christmas has been a little depressing for me as a child and went all the way up to an adult. I do always try to show up for my children and now my grandchildren. But I do have my own moment where I don't want to be bothered on Christmas. I try to see everybody on Christmas Eve and do what I do on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Just come back and see me on December 26th is a better day for me. But now that my child is gone, is even harder. But I think this year, in my mind, I'm already contemplating on doing something different. I want this year to be a little different. And the thing is, for me, when we have holidays or like I just recently graduated and just different things like that, thank you. I still kind of feel guilty when I'm celebrating anything. Like, how dare I celebrate when I feel like there's no celebrate for what? I don't have my child here with me. But I carry him with me every day. And I talk to him every day. That helps me. I know he's gone. I've accepted that. I have accepted that, but I know he's still with me spiritually. And so what helps me is kind of sort of just talking to him every day. When I walk in the door, my son's name was Craig. So when I walk in the door, I'm like, hey, Craig, I'm home. And I talk to his picture on the wall. Sometimes I come out of my bedroom half dressed. I'm like, Craig, close your eyes, and that helps me because I know how he would respond if he saw me that way. So that kind of helps me through. And then I have friends and family who, I know love me to death and they want to support me through it. But at the same time, I don't want to bring them down. So I try not to bring my level of energy around them. If I'm not, if I'm not up, then I don't want to be around them. If I'm down and want to be by myself, I explain that. They usually understand that. And I'll kind of sit by myself. But like what Dr. Means was saying, you don't want to spend too much time in it, but I do try to encourage people. Sometimes it is okay to sulk in it just for a minute. You definitely don't want to spend a lot of time in it. But I do, I acknowledge to myself that he's gone and, I've accepted it. And I know life could be different if he were still here, but now I have to figure out and manage a life without him. But I still, like I say, I continue to talk to him. My friends and my family, they talk to me about him. But what a lot of people don't understand is that, like I said, this is year 2 for me. So it's only been a year and a half since he's been gone. And for me, like I say, it's only been a year and a half. But for some people, they're like, okay, it's been a year and a half. I don't know if it could be 20 years. To me, it's only 20 years, So, and that's what I need people to understand. But, the only advice that I can try to give to someone else who's going through that is, just spend your time that you need, but don't spend too much time in it. And, just acknowledge the people who are still around you and they do love you and they care for you. I like to at least acknowledge them. And I know what they're trying to do, so I make that known to them. But I do also let them know if I need my space, please respect that just, for a minute. I do tell them, don't let me, go far off too long, but, give me my moment if I need it.
I really understand about the time. I feel like people don't know how to say things. A lot of people don't know what to say and how to say it. My mom been gone for 16 years. She also died a month before K-Swift died. So I don't, when people bring up holidays and how you should do things, they really don't know how to approach people, especially if you haven't went through it.
Right. I totally agree.
That's very tough. What are some other strategies? Because I'm still dealing with grief and I suffer from depression and anxiety. So these holidays be a little different. Being pork chop and coming on the radio and having to be, the jolly guy and
everybody.
Yep. Leave me, it be days I'd be like, man, F the world. I don't want to have to smile and have to, I think my job is to make other people happy when I can't be happy myself. So can you give me and everybody that's watching some strategies of what to do during these holiday seasons.
So if you don't mind, I'll share a little bit. There's this acronym that we use when it comes to getting through the holidays, and the acronym is COPE, COPE.
Mhm.
Um, the C stands for clearing the mind. You know, our mind can take us places sometimes that can be very unhealthy for us and very negative. And grief is a struggle within the mind and the spirit. And it's really important that we recognize what our thoughts are, because feelings will follow thoughts. And so if we are thinking thoughts like, it'll never be the same, I'll never be loved this or see them again, if we constantly are thinking those types of thoughts, our feelings are going to follow that. And so, what we try to help people understand is that it requires work to heal. It really does. Just like if you were to have a deep wound, you would have to treat it, right?
Right.
And the first thing, even if you want to lose 10 pounds, you got to change how you're thinking before the weight will become to come off and your behavior will change. So, your thoughts are really, really critical as you work through this grief. And even though these negative thoughts are going to come, just like that feeling, you can't give it all of your time. Acknowledge that negative thought and then think about what is something positive that I can focus on, as opposed, like someone asked another individual, why she had lost her mom too. And she could not stop thinking about the last few hours of her suffering. And she's just been angry for so many years about that. And someone asked her, why are you letting 1 hour take away memories of 50 years that were so precious to you? And it upset her, just thinking about that. But you have
Right.
to think about that. Why are you letting the fact one day that changed your life ruin the 50 years of good memories that you had with your mom? That's something to think about. And so what would you want to carry forward in your life to honor her is more of the healing process in order to work through your grief and figure out how to move on in a healthy way, and passing some of those traditions down to your son. That can be, it's about the season, not so much all this materialism that the holidays bring. So
Right.
cope, C for cope, O for organization. One thing that most individuals experience when they are going through grief is feeling disorganized and out of control. And that's not unusual. And you just have to go with the flow. It's part of that fight or flight response that we go into anytime we experience some kind of fear or danger. We kind of get in this hyper vigilant mode and can't focus. We can't think clearly.
That's
So,
where I'm at right now. My
yeah,
room is a mess. I mean, it is ridiculous. But
is
I can't find the time because I'm resting from the strokes. I can't really lift like I want to lift, but in my brain, I know I gotta get organized. Because the
and
longer it's not organized,
the
the
more
longer
you're going
it
to
looks
feel
like things
disorganized.
ain't right.
And so I suggest, taking small chunks of that at a time. Maybe just doing one corner of your room at a time,
I'm trying.
not trying to take on the whole room or the whole house at one time,
Right.
just a small portion at a time.
I'm waiting for Black Fridays. I'm waiting for that day to just, ain't nobody really doing nothing. Everybody off. I'm waiting for Black Friday to start.
And what's that going to do for you in organizing? Or are you just going to buy more stuff?
No, but remember, we ain't really doing Christmas at that house. I ain't buying nobody nothing.
All
I
right.
just, I just want to get stuff settled because when I moved, I had my first stroke. I
Oh, wow.
had it on August 4th, and I moved the Monday after when I got out the hospital. So it's still stuff around that I want to, do, because I know my depression has starting to set in because of the holidays. Like, it's just been too
And
much
you know
back to
what?
back to back to back.
You're bringing up another point. In addition to the loss of your mom and family and brother, family members, you're also dealing with your own personal loss, a change of your own health. And so you're trying to adapt to that. That's grieving too, to some degree, because you're trying to readjust to your life change, and that might be affecting how you're feeling as well. But just understand, give yourself a little pat on the back and say, I'm taking one day at a time.
And that's what I do. That's what I do. Believe me, Sharon, when you was talking about your son, all I thought about was being in the hospital, both strokes, and not having that certain someone to come visit. I had friends, I had family members, but I'm not in a relationship because I went through my divorce a year ago, but last February. So to be up in the middle of the night and you don't get the phone call or the text that you really want that warmth or hug from, that played a lot in my depression.
Absolutely.
And then I started looking at the pills I got to take now for the strokes, plus the sertraline for the depression, and it's just a lot.
So pork chop, it is a lot, and you're validating how difficult it is. But what is the blessing of it all?
I got up. God got me up to hug my son, and that's what is. Everything don't account to that. Like, forget all of that. The doctor said it might take me to 2026 to be like 100%. But the other day I walked without my cane. I'm telling you, as a black man that go to Baptist church, I shouted on the radio for a little bit, and it's a blessing. I count all my little small blessings.
There you go.
I get to walk up the steps like foot for foot, because usually I used to have to 1 foot to the next foot, 1 foot to the next foot, like that. But now I'm believe me, I am blessed. To tell another little small part of, since we talking about mental health, I tried to kill myself twice, and I'm still here. 2 strokes, still here. Heart attack, still here. I know God got something great for me to tell. He give you tests so you can have a testimony.
Yeah. So, and you know what, poor job, if I can say something too, because it's funny because you say that you don't want to clean your room because you can't even get. And I think certain things work for certain people, but for me, when I'm feeling down or whatever, cleaning up for me is therapeutic. It helps me. It distracts me. It keeps my mind off of certain things. And like you too, I lost my mom about 8 years ago, and it is rough. But I think kind of like when you lose your parent, you know that that's going to happen one day. We're never still prepared for it, but we know it's going to happen. But not to overplay or over. I can't even find the word.
I understand what you're about to say. Yeah.
But losing a child is something that you don't expect to happen. Mm-hmm. We never expect to bury our children. But I will say, even though it's been rough, I try to find something positive now. And I've never been like a very positive person. I used to be, Debbie Downer all the time. And it seems like since he's passed, that probably would have gotten worse, or, I'd still be that person. But it's actually with the help of Roberta's house, because just sitting around with a group of people who understand exactly what you're dealing with and what you're going through, to be in a club that you never thought you'd be in and never asked to be in and don't want to be a part of, but you find yourself here. But just listening to other people's stories, I have found a way to find something positive in everything negative nowadays. Just the slightest things, I can find something positive. And what I try to tell people, as what was told to me at Roberta's house, is the worst thing in life has happened to me. This is the way I feel. The worst thing in life has happened to me. Nothing you can do to me at this point can be worse than what I've experienced. So when I go somewhere and I deal with negative customer service, or I have a friend or a supposedly friend or family member or whatever, whoever says something negative, or what, it's not going to touch me anymore. The worst thing in life has happened to me. You can't steal whatever I got going, the positivity that I'm trying to exude right now. You can't take that from me. Yes, I lost my child, and I'm telling you, I will never be the same since he's gone. Life will never be the same for me. But I do have to remember, I do have other children and I have grandchildren. So I can't sulk in it too long because they still need me as well. And it took me a little while to, think about that in my mind and turn it around for myself. I
Right.
get exactly how you feel and where you're coming from. But just like you said, the happiness, just to see the joy on your face when you said that you got up and walked and, you walked without that cane and, you were able to speak on the radio and, your voice got loud because you were, that remember those moments. And then not only that, just when you are having a bad moment, just think to yourself, I've been through worse than this. Look, I'm walking again. I never thought that would be possible. Yeah, I have brain fog, but I'm still here to be able to remember some of my thoughts or, know what to do next or whatever. So to me, those are achievements and things that you can look to say, I'm not going to let this defeat me. I'm not going to let this bring me down. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I got to dig deep and search real hard to find something positive, but I can certainly find something positive if I have to, force it, but I definitely can find something positive and it helps me.
We are here with minorities and mental health, grief, and loneliness during the holidays. You can call Sheppard Pratt at 410-938-5000 or Roberta's house at 410-235-6633. Dr. Means, what are some of the feelings or emotions that should be expected during the grieving process?
So before we get there, I just want to call out probably the most important aspect of this conversation thus far. Both you, Pork Chop, and Sharon, you've done sort of the critical thing that's most important as you're dealing with grief during any period, but especially during the holidays, is that you sought help, right? Like you felt like it was getting overwhelming and you reached out to people that could help you. That it's wonderful if that's a mental health professional or a psychiatrist or a therapist, but certainly even just reaching out to your community to make sure that you are supported and not dealing with this alone. So congrats to both of you on that, because that's what's most important here. Now, in terms of what to expect, what to feel with grief, I think it's a challenge, right? There are stages of grief that you go through, and that could be feelings of depression or anger or sort of bargaining about what's going on, or what if this, what if that, what if I could have done that, sort of thing. All these kind of ways that we think about grief and ways that we get caught up in our head and kind of these running thoughts that cause us to feel even more sad, like Annette was saying. So it's important to give yourself some space for that, because that is part of the natural process. That should happen. But as Sharon was saying, you give yourself that space, but you don't sit there too long, and you allow others in to help you along the way. Maybe not to push you too hard, but to hold your hand a little bit in order to help you move along. I do want to make one other point, especially during the holidays, and this is something that you brought up, Pork Chop. You said this key word about how people say you should be doing things, right? And that should during the holidays is a tricky word, because there's so many times we feel like we should be, getting this for our kids, or we should be inviting this person over to eat, or we should be going to this service. And those shoulds, sometimes we have to look at those shoulds, because those also cause us to feel even more distressed, because we're not then accomplishing in the way that we should during the holiday season. Those shoulds have to be reassessed, especially when you're going through grief during the holidays. They can be altered. You're going to do what you can. You're going to do what works for you. You're going to do what gets you to a healthy place. And sometimes that's not what other people think you should do or how you should be doing it.
I'd like to also just add what's really important, that sometimes people have this belief that after the people that we love have gone, that we don't have a relationship with them anymore. And that kind of makes the grief even harder. But what we all must realize is that, as Sharon says, she talks to her son sometimes. We move from a physical relationship to a spiritual relationship with our loved ones. And during the holiday time, it's really important that we keep that spirit alive, that memory alive. And it's really about the season and doing things to honor their life. The relationships that I had with those who are gone now, my mom and dad, I think about them this holiday season, and I'll do something to honor them. I'll donate to a charity in their name, or I will call one of my mom's old friends that, she was very close with. There's so many different things, traditions that you can create during this time in memory of your loved one, and making sure that you acknowledge their life still. And many people feel like, that's been taken away, but no, this is a time when you're supposed to remember the love and share that love with others, and keep those share the legacy of your parents' pork chop with your son. Tell them all everything about mama and your stories and how you grew up and everything else. I mean,
How they beat my ass.
well,
Those
maybe
ass women stories are big.
maybe that might keep him walking a straight line.
Yeah.
Who knows? But it's really important. You can I've seen families who decorate trees. They can have ornaments with their loved ones' pictures on it, or even something that I did. My mother used to make fruit cakes, and no one else in the family makes fruit cakes except for myself. And but yet the third generation wants to learn how to make fruit cakes. So I had her recipe engraved on a carved wood with her picture on it, and shared that as a gift. Gifts don't necessarily have to be the junk sometimes that we buy from the stores, but something that might be sentimental. Some people actually send cards or with pictures of their loved ones. They bring out the old photo albums and tell stories. And, that's important, that we keep our ancestry alive.
Let me ask you, Dr. Means, is it any difference between male grief and female grief? Is there the same, or do men do things differently than women, or vice versa?
Yeah, so I mean, clearly we're talking about some broad generalizations about men
Right.
and women, right? I mean, in the end, it's grief, and that grief is the same. Now, how that grief is handled or how that grief is expressed certainly can vary, and men have a tendency to be a little bit more tight to the chest when it comes to the expression of that grief, right? We know we get ourselves in trouble because we don't open our mouths, we don't reach out to our buddies. We feel that part of what we have to do as a man is to hold it tight and not to express that sadness and that vulnerability. Women do a much better job of reaching out to their support networks in general, right? We're talking about generalizations here. So I think that when it comes to grief, we can learn from each other. I think that men probably can learn from women a little bit more when it comes to this one, because grief is getting through any hardship is about most often about having a support network around you that can lift you up, right? And that's anything in accomplishing in life, whether it's overcoming addiction or, uh, obesity. We found that the best interventions is having a support group around you that you can tap on and say, I'm struggling right now, I need some help. So I think this is where women have a one up on us, and that they do this better because they rely upon each other in general, again, in terms of establishing those support networks.
Yeah,
And men,
women have Galentine's, they have Friendsgiving. You don't
Not
see
all of us, but
you
yeah.
ain't never
my
been
daughter's at Friendsgiving right now
look,
with
you
her
ain't a
girlfriend.
man ain't never invite you to Friendsgiving.
But I think we're trying to change this trend. I think Roberta's house just recently, about a month ago, it was in October, we had a men's conference, and it was called Huddle Up. And it was sponsored by Care First and the Ravens. And of course, we invited the guys to wear their favorite shirts. We just have to create things that are attractive to the male population. And I'm telling you, when these guys came together, you all had a lot to say. So I do think that it's about, historically, we've reared male children to be this, to grow up to be these strong figures and to be tough and not to cry and all of that. And it's literally killed them. And so I think we're trying to work on changing the mindset around the male figure. And many men now are learning how to be sensitive and learning that love language for women. And that's something new now as well. So I think we're turning the curve, hopefully.
What about what can we do to memorialize our loved ones that's gone? I know we all said, a couple things to do. Y'all gave me a great idea. I think Saturday, not Saturday, tonight, I'm going to post something that says, let's do a balloon liftoff for those who wasn't with us for the holiday. And find a place to meet up, go get your balloon, and we'll release it. And just something small that people can come together and hug and talk about their loved ones, and then release the balloons to them to go to heaven. Y'all just gave me that idea, so I'm gonna see if that works.
Okay. All right. Just make
you better be there.
Make sure they're biodegradable.
Yeah, don't break any laws, Pork Chop. That might be
Listen,
against the law.
I know my best friend worked for BG&E. He was like, they don't like when people do that. I don't know why they don't like it. How can someone get some help from Sheppard Pratt, and then we'll go to Roberta's house?
Absolutely. Well, certainly reaching out to Sheppard Pratt at 410-938-5000 or shepherdpratt.org is a great way to see all the resources that Sheppard Pratt has to offer. Many resources. I mean, I think people think of Sheppard Pratt as just the hospitals that are in Maryland, right, but also there's a slew of community services that are offered throughout Maryland and throughout the nation. The Sheppard Pratt runs in order to help those who might not be coming to their hospital campuses in an effort to reach out and provide the support that people need who are suffering from mental health issues.
Okay. Ms. Grier?
Well, Roberta's house has many different programs for all ages, children, teens, and adults, support groups, and we have 10-week programs. All of our peer support groups are free. You can visit our website at robertashouse.org to see all the different programs. We have camps for young people. We're in Baltimore City schools. And we have adult support programs. We have programs for moms who've lost a child, for homicide survivors, adults who've lost adult children, all types of groups. And it's just a matter of picking up the phone and making that call.
All right. Sharon.
Yes.
I know you said you've been doing some things for your son. Mm-hmm. What will you be doing this year for Thanksgiving to memorialize him?
Honestly, so I haven't thought about what I'm going to do to memorialize him, but I have been more so thinking about what I'm going to do to keep myself busy, to keep myself from going into that depressive state. This year I'm going to go to my best friend's house and I have Thanksgiving with them, her and her family. And she knows me very well. So if I get quiet or, I need a minute, or if I say I'm going to leave, she respects that. She'll pull me to the side, talk to me for a second. And if I need to go, I need to go. But, she won't let me sulk in it. Like, she'll let me sulk in it for a little while because I need to. But, she has a key to my place and she will come and make sure I'm up out of this bed. That's for sure. Right. So, but I do intend to spend time with her family, but as well as spend time with my grandkids and my other children. I have 2 other children. Mm-hmm. So, I try to spend time with them as well, or I will be spending time with them. Because last year, I didn't look at it this way because that was my first year without them. And this year, I know it's still going to be rough because it's already, you're hearing the Christmas music and that, you see it's getting dark earlier, which is another, a sign of, being alone and, it's getting cold, it's getting dark. Those things help depression set in as well. So I try to, like I say, I try to stay busy. But for me, what seems to work is just, like I say, inserting myself into other, like different organizations, just going around and helping somebody else. It may be somebody there that if they hear my story, it may keep them from going into a depression, or it may make them want to get out of the bed, or just being able to help somebody else. It helps me. It makes me feel better because I know that Craig would want that for me. I know how you are. You would normally be out there doing something for somebody else, and that's just who I am. So that helps me knowing that I'm honoring him in that way. And then, as I said in the beginning, is it's become a passion for me now. So I've started a nonprofit, and I want to work with youth. I gear my nonprofit around the youth because they are our future. And without them, what will we have? And I would love to bring back the village, because I know when I was growing up, there was a village. It doesn't seem like we have a village in our communities anymore. And we certainly need that. And I think that alone helps me to be able to be a part of somebody's village. It makes me feel like I'm doing my part, and I'm honoring my son in that way as well.
I'm such a fat boy. Once you said village, I thought of Royals Carry Out. I was like, "What's wrong with the village? What happened to the village?"
Start with Royals, because I'm telling you, you're gonna make me go get a chicken box.
You better go get it. You better go get
Right.
it. Dr. Means, is it Dr. Greer? Can I call you Dr. Greer?
Dr. Greer. No, Mr. Greer.
Is there anything that Sheppard Pratt or Roberta's house got any events coming up for the people that's watching they can come to? Or
Well, yes. In fact, Roberta's house is having its annual candlelight service of remembrance that we do every year. It is going to be held on December the 14th, which is a Saturday, at Huber Memorials. I think it's the Life Center there on Loch Raven, and it's from 3 to 5 p.m. We're having choirs, music, dancers. Each individual gets a candle to light in memory of their loved ones. So, it's a time. It's not going to be a sad event. It's going to be uplifting and joyful, and, bringing hearts together and feeling warm.
And I will be there.
Dr. Means, anything for Sheppard Pratt?
Absolutely. Certainly, we're always here to be a support to the community and reaching out in order to respond to the needs of those who are suffering. Our annual Turkey Trot is also on Thursday, where it's in Frederick, where we kind of lead the way in order to help promote mental health awareness and sort of demonstrate our commitment to the community. Side note to always remember, another resource for everyone is 988. So calling 988, the national hotline regarding mental health crisis. And if you need some support and you don't know any other number to call, always call 988 and they'll connect you with those who can be of service.
So the Turkey Trot, anybody can just show up?
Sure. I mean, it'd be great if you registered and you want to run it, but it's always good to have people there supporting as well.
Somebody please run for me. I can't.
You can walk it too, even if you just walk a little bit, Pork Chop. Just a couple steps. We'll be happy to have
you. Don't want to see me walk 8 steps and be like, "It was a good walk." Good walk, ladies and gentlemen. Man, is there anything that we can end off with? Any words from all three of y'all? We'll start with Dr. Means.
Absolutely. I think that just be careful about the expectations you set for yourself. Make sure that those are measured. You don't have to do it big, okay? Especially when you're grieving during the holidays. Do it in a way that will be supportive for your mental health. Do it in a way that feels comfortable. Don't worry about those huge expectations that sometimes we set for ourselves during the holiday season, especially when you're in a vulnerable time. Reach out to those who will support you and love you and carry you through. And this too shall pass, as we said earlier. It's just a moment. Grief, I always say this, patients get mad at me, but grief can be a beautiful thing too, right? It reminds us of all the love we've experienced, right? Because if it wasn't hard to let it go, if we didn't grieve it, we wouldn't have experienced that great blessing at some point. So it is hard to think of it in that way, but do try to think of that this is a blessing, that you have something that hits you in that way. There is something to grieve, because that just goes to show you the love that you had.
Gotcha.
Yes.
We'll end off with you, Sharon. We're gonna end it with you, Miss Annette.
I just, I agree with Dr. Means so much that, and if you begin, it's okay to try to experience joy and to be happy. If that's what you're longing for, feeling joy doesn't mean that you've forgotten your loved one or that you love them any less. They want you to move on. They want you to be happy and to fulfill your life, and just, follow through with some type of a plan and execute it. And that, it's important that you work through this as your healing process. That's what grief is. It's a healing process that's physical, emotional, and spiritual. And it's okay not to be okay sometimes.
All right, Miss Sharon.
I agree with both Dr. Means and Miss Annette and what they've said. I would also add, and I'm going to try not to hog up all the time, but I would also add what people need to understand is, like you were saying earlier, Pork Chop, is just be mindful of what you say to people, because sometimes, and I know a lot of times people don't mean harm, but for me, what bothers me is when people say things like, I know, because when I lost my grandmother, that's not the same as losing your child, So, and people don't understand that. And I'm not, taking away from their grief and what they've been through, but that's why I'm grateful for Roberta's house, because I sat with a group of parents who were in the same place that I was in, and they know exactly what I'm going through. They understand it. So that would be the first thing I would say. Just be mindful of what, you say to people. And I know sometimes you don't know what to say, just saying I'm sorry or I'm here for you is more than enough. You don't even, really need to go any further than that sometimes. So that's enough. But another thing that I would say is that, like I said, there's not a minute any day that goes by that I don't think about Craig. It's really not. But if I thought about what happened and him not being here in every minute of that, every time now there are minutes that pop up that I do think that, but there are so many more minutes and hours in the day that I think of other things. I think of the smile on his face. I think of how we were in the car and the way he would laugh if I'm trying to dance to a song, or, just different things like that. So I have to think about the pleasant memories as well. But what also does help me too is just, like I said, being there for someone else. And I hate the fact that I have a story that I can relate to some people with. I hate that I have this story. I do. But I feel like everything happens for a reason, and everything's a part of God's plan. So it happens the way it's supposed to. Yes, I wish it could be different, but just to be there for someone else sometimes, to say I've been there, to be able to relate to them, you'd be surprised how much that helps people. Because just somebody coming to me and say, I know what you're going through. I lost my son XYZ years ago. To me, that's a person who I know if I need to break down and cry in that moment, I can. If I just need to hug him, I can. If I can smile, because they're not going to look at me like, how dare she be over there celebrating and she just lost her child? They're not going to look at me that way. And even if they're not going through the exact same type of grief that I'm dealing with, they didn't maybe not lost a child, but maybe lost another family member. I already know if I go, and that's why I go around to different places. If I go and just insert myself and just say, hey, I'm just here if you need any support, or, I don't care if I rub your arm, or some people don't like to be touched, and I understand that too. But if I just stand there and I say, I'm just here to listen. Sometimes people don't want you to say anything. They just want you to listen, or they may not want to say anything themselves. They just want silence, but just to know that someone is there with them. And just as Dr. Means said as well, when he said that with grief can be a blessing sometimes, because I think a lot of times with a lot of things in life, we take a lot of things for granted. And I'm gonna tell you, just as a sidebar, I had a rotator cuff tear on my left shoulder, and I'm right-handed. I never one time thought or realized how important my left arm is to me until I didn't have it. I do everything with my right hand, and I'm thinking, wow, I can't do much without my left arm. Well, it's the same thing to me as what Dr. Means is saying. So without grief, if I've never gone through grief, I can't appreciate what I do have in life. So I think that grief, is unfortunate what happened, but it kind of works the other way as well, because without that grief, I can't appreciate everything else. It makes me appreciate my other kids more. It makes me appreciate my grandkids. It makes me appreciate just waking up in the morning, just knowing that, it's hard to wake up without him, but I can wake up without him, and I can get through this day, because I've had worse days than this. After this situation, I'm telling you, it's nothing you can do that's been worse than what I've been through. So I tell myself that on a daily basis sometimes, because I know it sounds easy. And what I'm saying, somebody somewhere is sitting back saying, okay, yeah, it sounds easy. That's easier said than done. And it is easier said than done. But for me, I have to tell myself every day, Sharon, you have to get up. If you don't get up, and I also think about that too. If you don't get up, then what? If you lay in this bed, then what? Okay, you're going to lose your home. You're going to lose your car eventually, because I'm not getting up being productive, and I'm not earning a paycheck. making people around me even more depressed, or say, oh, people don't want to be around me in this point. So now I probably have no family, no friends, no job, no home. Like, what does that do for me? Yes, I lost my child, but life is still going on for me, and I still have to remember that it goes on for the rest of my family, my children, my siblings, who, of course, my siblings don't want to see me going through this. They hurt for me as well. So and they know, of course, I'm going to have my moments. We all are. But at the same time, and they respect that. But at the same time, I know that they don't want to see me like that. I wouldn't want to see them like this. So I continuously tell myself, this too will pass. As I started off, this too will pass. And I know it's easier said than done, but I know that there is light on the other side. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get to the light, how long I'm going to sit in this, but I know I can't stay here. I can't stay in this moment. And I know that he wouldn't want me in this moment.
I have a special question for Dr. Means and Miss Grier. Y'all being the professionals that y'all are, I need to hear a story of y'all loss, being in y'all profession, because I feel like me and Sharon are regular people, compared to Dr. and Miss Grier, who runs and co-founded that beautiful Roberta's house. Do y'all have a story where, we look at Dr. Means as Dr. Means, but what grief have you done or went through? And even being a doctor, it just wasn't enough,
Yeah, no, it's something to think about. We're all human. We all come to this as treatment providers, but we all have our own grief that we bring into this, right? I've lost, my mother, my family members, my brother, and part of that drives how we then approach treatment too. What we can offer, how we can empathize, how we can learn to just sit with somebody and sometimes even just be quiet. Even as the doctor, I can just sit and be quiet with somebody to give them that space. As Mr. Ron was saying, that it's important to give people that space and not to impose even treatment upon them sometimes, and just allow it to be. But I often, again, do some of that planning with patients that I'm seeing about how they can create that space for themselves. All the things that Ms. Ron was talking about in terms of thinking about things ahead of time and figuring out her girlfriend's house that she's going to go to and all these kinds of things. Like I plan with people who have these hard times approaching, and I say, well, let's do it. Come on. How are we going to create space for you to feel comfortable in your grief, but also to protect you from it if we need to protect you from it. And we have those discussions and we plan for it in order to have an action plan, right? So that way, when it starts descending upon them, they know when to move and when to reach out for support, whether that's with me or with some member of their community, or whether it's with a biological family member. It's key in thinking about this when you're moving into this time period.
Got you, Miss Annette.
Well, Roberta's house was founded and named after my mother, who had died in 2006. And so I was actually, I'm a registered nurse, and I was doing grief counseling for 35 years. And when my mother passed away, I took care of her in her last days of dealing with breast cancer. And when she left, I lost my best friend. I lost the closest person to me, my role model, my everything, I thought. And look what came out of my grief, look what I found. It really made me evaluate my life, who I was, um, why I was here on earth. It made me ask all of those questions because I felt that death was really now opening my eyes to see life differently, and my values changed, my dreams changed, everything changed within me. And Roberta's house was the result of my innermost pain. See what we can do? That's all I can say. We are change makers. We can be. It's about choice and what we decide to do with that pain. And we can move that pain towards our passion.
What about the grief of someone that died, that been shunned, like with somebody, your whole family was about being straight, and then they were with the LGBTQ community, how do you deal with that type of grief?
That can be complicated grief too, because it's also what we call disenfranchised grief, where society does not give us the permission to grieve, and we don't have the support of society to acknowledge our losses. And so it really can make the grief more difficult. It can make it prolonged. It can lead to more greater mental health problems and things of that nature. And many people within the LGBT community, Q community, suffer because not only are they losing ones that they love, but oftentimes they're being judged by the people that surround them, family and friends, as if they shouldn't be grieving, and it complicates it and makes their grief even worse.
Yeah, I would add that, I think that one of the ways to protect against that is something that we tend to be good at as marginalized populations, right? We're good at creating something out of nothing, and very often creating family and community, even when we don't have it immediately available, right? We might not have biological family available. We find an auntie and an uncle somewhere to create that connection, and that can be protective in those situations where you might have a family situation that ends up being a little bit more dysfunctional or a little bit more pathologic, causing you more distress. And that's where we pull together and we create those communities, maybe even outside of our own biological families, in order to have that level of support to help get us through.
All right. So before we leave again, minorities and mental health, grief and loneliness during the holidays, all sponsored by Sheppard Pratt. Dr. Ronald Means of Sheppard Pratt is the chief of medical staff. You like that job, man? Because you look like the chief or something. You got that chief look.
I don't know about all that, poor child, but I do like the job. Again, there's actually 4 chiefs of medical staff at Sheppard, and my arm of services is working in the community and helping to run the community services that Sheppard Pratt offers, which is my love. I love being in community psychiatry because I love kind of getting in there and do the work with folks who sometimes don't get good people to do the good work with. So I really do enjoy the work.
And can you give us a number where somebody can call again, and the 3-digit number for the mental crisis?
Absolutely. So the Sheppard number is 410-938-5000. Again, that will get you to any and all the Sheppard Pratt services and help guide you to what might be available. But even more important, I will say, is 988, which is the National Crisis Hotline, to reach out if you are at all having any sort of acute mental health issues and you need some immediate help. You can call, you can text. It's just a way to get a hold of somebody so they can help direct you to the right resources 24/7.
I would like to shout out Sheppard Pratt because before my mom passed, she used to work there. So every time I see the word Sheppard Pratt, I think about my mother. She dealt with inpatients and medicine.
There you go.
So thank you for you might have known her, you might not, but her working with you guys, I appreciate it.
We appreciate her work.
All right, Miss Annette MARCH-GRIER, president and co-founder of Roberta House. How long Roberta House been around?
For now 17 years.
Wow.
Yes, wow. 17 years.
And how can they get in touch with you guys?
Oh, by visiting our website at robertashouse.org or calling 410-235-6633.
All right, and Sharon, yes. Or I'm gonna mess with you, Sharon or Sharon.
Let you slide with that.
That for your mom, to have something for her to be like,
right.
Is you being an advocate? Your story is big, first of all, and I'm pretty sure people were watching, listening to you. How can someone get in touch with you? Do you have an IG, or if somebody really like, hey, I feel your pain. I'm going through the same thing. I lost my son. I lost my daughter. I would like to reach out to you. How can someone do that?
Actually, as I said, I have started a nonprofit. I'm still in the works, so I'm working on the social media because I've never been a social media person, but this is
Okay.
something that, I know I need to put myself out there, because if anybody does want to reach me because they may be going through it, or like I said, just so I can volunteer. I volunteer a lot of places now and things like that. But my organization is craigspath.org, and they can reach me with my email is sbanks@craigspath.org.
All right. Thank you all. I hope everybody have a great holiday. Don't
You
eat
as
too
well.
much. Dr. Means, don't eat too much. You look like you're ready.
Please, I'm already thinking about it too much that I'm going to be eating.
All right. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate it. Minorities and Mental Health, Grief and Loneliness During the Holidays, sponsored by Sheppard Pratt. Big shout out to ANNETTE MARCH-GRIER, the president and co-founder of Roberta's House, Dr. Ronald Means, the Sheppard Pratt Chief of Medical Staff, and Sharon Banks, the survivor and advocate of everything Craig. All right.
That's right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And if I could just add one thing real quick.
Oh, add it. You're going to add it anyway, girl.
I just want to say, thank you to Annette, because like she was saying, it was her mom's passing that, prompted her to want to get out here and do something. And because she's done this, because of her grief, I benefited from that. And so many others have. So I want to thank you for that, because without Roberta's House, I honestly don't know where I would be right now.
Oh, thank you.
No, you're very welcome.
I would add one more comment here.
Go ahead.
Sharon, you made a comment about reaching the light at the end of the tunnel and getting that light. I would argue that, light, you don't reach a light at the end of a tunnel. Light starts to come into the tunnel, right? It gets gradually brighter. So you're already in the light. You really are.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. I hear it. I see it. You are definitely now at a point of reinvesting. And that is really when healing just begins to soar.
Absolutely.
And that is where I got my tools from Roberta's House. That's where I got my tools. I'm telling you, without them, I would not be where I am today. So
don't you start no mess, Pastor.
That's right. And same thing with Dr. Means, even though I have never been with Sheppard Pratt, but I too, I suffer with anxiety. So without the mental health services, without me reaching out to a therapist or, someone, a counselor, someone I can speak with, that's got me a long way too. And that was before the death of Craig. But since the death of Craig, I also have a grief counselor. And also through Roberta's House, both through the state's attorney's office, but also she facilitates at Roberta's House. So I'm telling you, I don't know where I'd be without any of that. So I'm great.
How you breaking up at the end? Right at the very end. Sharon, you still there? Is she frozen the yard as well?
She is, yeah.
Yeah, she did.
Well, we'll end it with Sharon being frozen right there. Y'all be perfect. Good. Please have an amazing Thanksgiving. I'm going to try my best to do what you all said and be with my son, be with family members, and I'm just waiting for next year to see what God got in store for me.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Bless.
Right.
Bless
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.